2:20, so I'm just letting things get started. Welcome back, everybody. Good afternoon. Hopefully everything's going smooth and going well. We have another key meeting today as we continue to build our knowledge of logic and critical thinking. I'll give you guys the details on the first homework assignment that's due a week from today, and I'll post that to Canvas today also. We had to wait until today's meeting to assign it because some of the content that we go over in today's meeting is essential for doing the homework. So anyways, we'll make sure to make that clear before we're done with today's lecture. And yeah, just to sort of get things started and get you active here, feel free to say hello, type out something or whatever in the chat. I'll use that as just a kind of informal record of who's present here and everything. So good to see you guys. Hi, Karen. Who else we got? Tom, Hannah, Allie, Carly, Coy, Lorena, Andy. Hey there, guys. Hannah, Guadalupe, Noah, Stuart. Welcome back. Tim, Gunnar, AJ. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate your attendance and your focus to the class. So, all right. Sawyer, don't forget you. Good to see you too. Jacob, Blake, everybody else. All right. So let me go over some of the content that was important on the last meeting on Tuesday, and then that'll allow us to sort of seamlessly transition into today's material. Now, going back a few steps in the class to kind of review things, we've learned in this class that we're trying to be good critical thinkers, better at reasoning, evaluating arguments, being able to defend our claims with reasonable evidence and arguments, not the sort of person that believes things for no good reason without evidence, or the sort of person who makes bold assertions that they can't justify with evidence or facts. Arguments are of the first importance in any conversation about critical thinking. And an argument, now we may remember, is just a structure where it's a set of two or more sentences. And in every argument, there's one conclusion and at minimum one premise. The conclusion is the statement, the sentence that you're trying to prove to be true. The premises are evidence that backs that and gives support for it. And when you believe a statement is true, that means, well, when you think a statement is true, that means you believe it. And for it to be true, whatever it says has to match the facts of reality. Different types of sentences, assertions, interrogatives, but the most important one for our purposes are the assertions, the assertoric sentences, which have a truth value, which is either true or false. We talked about conclusion and premise indicator words like conclusion words, therefore, thus, hence, and premise words like because or since. And then last time, we really spent most of the meeting going over the difference between deduction and induction. So just want to quickly make sure that's still familiar to everybody. When you have a good deductive argument, it's called deductively valid. Who knows or could try to attempt an answer? What does it mean for an argument to be deductively valid? What is that? Just give me that. Oh, sure, yeah.
If the premises are all true, then the conclusion must be true?
Yes, correct, Hannah. So if the premises are all true, then the conclusion must be true. If that holds, then it is deductively valid. We refer to a whole bunch of different random examples of deductively valid arguments. Let me see if anyone here can just supply me with one example that fits that definition. It might take you a second to type it out or say it, but just give me your best shot. What do you think is an example of a deductively valid argument? Do you have a mic going? I thought I saw someone trying to speak on the mic, but I'm not hearing anything. No worries, though. Just anybody can take up the baton and let me know. It's okay to try and fail, not to worry, but an attempt is better than nothing. So, yeah, what do you say? Something that's deductively valid, an argument. So remember, all you got to do is generate information that logically necessitates a conclusion. Oh, Carly. So, yeah, I know, but the thing is, your mic isn't working. Like, there's no audio on my side. I heard the previous student's comment, so I think maybe you were muted. But anyway, Karen, what are you doing? Jeffrey Epstein has an island. Well, are you going to say more? Say more, because you know that an argument is more than just one sentence. So I'm not sure what that example is all about. Okay, Trung. If person A is taller than person B and person C is taller than person A, wait a minute. You're contradicting yourself. A can't be taller than B. Wait, A taller than B, C taller than A. Okay, and then C is taller than B. That's fine. Okay, Karen, you got more for me. Not done yet. No worries. So you've used these letters in a way that was a little different than me, but that's fine. A taller than B, C is taller than A, so C is also taller than B. That's fair. Blake, the Anaheim Convention Center is next to Disneyland. Disneyland is in California. Therefore, Disneyland is in, wait. Well, okay, Blake, I'm sure you meant to say something slightly different, because do you notice that your second premise is the same statement as the conclusion? Because your second premise says Disneyland's in California, and then you conclude that therefore Disneyland is in California. So I think maybe you meant to say the Anaheim Convention Center is in California. Is that fair to say? Yeah, no worries. Okay, now Karen, Jeffrey Epstein has an island is far away, and therefore Jeffrey Epstein has an island far away. Okay, sure. Whether that's sound or not is a different question, but just as stated, it would have the form of validity because it makes claims that in case they are true, the conclusion would follow from them. Yeah. Okay, yeah, so there's a lot of different examples. All men are mortal. Michael Jordan is a man, and therefore Michael Jordan is mortal. Michael. Magma is molten, and some metals have extremely high melting points. Therefore, some metals can resist being melted by magma. Let me think about your example. Magma is molten, is therefore very hot. Some metals have extremely high melting points. Some of them do. Therefore, some metals can resist being melted by magma. Well, you know, there's missing information, though, because having an extremely high melting point by itself does not give precise detail as to whether that is at the threshold that could or could not be molten by magma. So I think you'd have to say something more definite, like the melting temperature of the given metal that you want to refer to is given number. And then you can say magma is at a certain temperature, which is either going to be above or below that number. Then you'd be in a position to conclude something specific. AJ, the Ducks play in the NHL. John Gibson plays on the Ducks, and therefore John Gibson plays in the NHL. That's a good, fair example, yes. So the genre of example that you want is just some conclusion that has to be true if a set of premises that are supporting it are also true. And a lot of times we can generate just easy examples by using categorical terms like all or none. If I tell you that all birds can fly, and a pigeon is a bird, therefore a pigeon can fly, that would be valid. But let's now ask another question about soundness. The example I just said right here, that all birds can fly, a pigeon is a bird, therefore a pigeon can fly. I say it's valid. Is it sound? It's not sound. Okay, correct. Why not? Let me know the reason why it's not. Yeah, chicken is also a bird. Well, yes, but in specific, it's not sound because it includes at least one false premise. What's the definition of a sound argument? Yeah, ostriches, emus, chickens. Chickens, I think, can sort of flutter around and get off the ground for like a few, feet, but they can't fly very well. But there are definitely flightless birds. Penguins are another example that comes to mind. Definition of soundness one time. Correct, Blake. Sound is, you say, something that has all true premises where the conclusion has to be true. Sort of. One thing I would add to your statement there is it's a valid argument where the premises are all actually true. Okay, so validity just means that whatever the premises are, they imply the conclusion. That's just validity pure by itself. But soundness adds to that by actually having premises which are true and factual. So in my example that all birds can fly and an ostrich is a bird, so an ostrich can fly, it's valid, but it's not sound because of the falsehood involved in saying all birds can fly. Most, but not all can. All right. Sound arguments. Let's see. Orange County is in California. John Wayne Airport is in Orange County. So therefore, John Wayne Airport is in California. It's a valid argument. The premises are all true, so it's valid and it's sound. Now, you can have unsound arguments that are also valid. Like I just gave you this example of all birds can fly. And it's easy to generate indefinitely many examples that have that same kind of feature. All men have walked on the moon. Buzz Aldrin is a man, therefore Buzz Aldrin has walked on the moon. That case is kind of interesting because it does have a true conclusion, but it's based on at least one false premise, the first one that says all men have walked on the moon. So again, valid without being sound. So Validity is good. Soundness, I guess, is even better. But if you can't have a sound argument, at the minimum, you'd like it to at least have the right kind of logical format, so that if we assumed the premises to be true, or if we granted the premises to be true, then the conclusion could not be resisted because it's something that is a given if those premises involved in the argument are true too. Okay, now, Carly, you say this: not all living things have bones. Okay, but I don't know about your example. You say, I am a living thing that has not broken a bone, therefore I have no bones. No, I mean, first of all, the first premise is kind of irrelevant to the rest of the argument. Not all living things have bones, but so what? And then the second premise, I'm a living thing that has not broken a bone. That does not imply that you have no bones. You could have bones, be one of the living things that does, even though not all of them do. And you could be a being that hasn't broken a bone, but that's just because you haven't gotten into an accident, not because you have no bones. So I think you're a little confused with that one, Carly. It's not a best example. Do you understand, though, why it's not valid? Okay, Blake. Not all people like football. I'm a person, and therefore I don't like football. Yeah, so Blake, almost. The wording, though, in the first premise is wrong, because you say not all. Not all doesn't mean nobody. It just means that not 100% of people do. So it could be true that not all people like football, and you be a person and still like football. What your first premise would have to say for this to be valid would be a different way of wording it, which would be what? Letting you say it so that you can understand the correction. What's the first premise supposed to say if that was really valid? Go ahead, Blake. No people like football. Thank you. Right. So it's a different piece of information. If nobody likes football and you're a person, then it would follow that you don't like football. Correct. Not all is different. Like I can say not all people have long hair, and let me think. Ivanka Trump is a person, so she doesn't have long hair. That doesn't follow. Just because not all people have it and somebody's a person, that leaves room for there to be some that still do. Okay, black widows are spiders. All black widows are black. Therefore, all black spiders are black widows. Hannah, black widows are spiders. Yes, they are. All black widows are black. Yes, true. Therefore, all black spiders. No, that doesn't follow. It doesn't follow that all black spiders are black widows, because you never said anywhere that all spiders are black. You said all black widows are black, of course, but that doesn't imply anything about all the other spiders like brown recluses and everything else. All black spiders are black widows. There could be black spiders that are not black widows, and that's completely compatible with your first two premises. So no. Maybe if you had said all spiders are black, black widows are spiders, and therefore they are black, that would have been okay. Yeah, why would you say all black spiders are black widows? The information above doesn't imply that. The only thing that was stated in the premises is that black widows are spiders and that they are black. But it doesn't say anything about other spiders. And it doesn't say anything about other black spiders. So if you had said all spiders are black widows and black widows are black, then I guess it could have followed that all black spiders are black widows, but it's a slight mismatch. Not to worry though. It's something that gets easier over time, generating valid arguments that are either sound or not sound. I would say to you, start with the word all or no, instead of making it the second premise, because it gets confusing in your mind a little bit when you have to remember or think about what the implication will be if it's not clearly specified what the category is that has all the things within it. So I want to ask next about inductive strength. To have an inductively strong argument, what's that mean?
If all premises are true, then the conclusion is highly likely to be true.
Okay, yes. Daniel, no. It doesn't mean all the premises are true. It just means that if they were all true, then the conclusion would be likely to be true. So you're right there, Karen. If all the premises are true, the word if is the start. If all the premises are true, then the conclusion is probable. It's likely to be true, but it's not 100% guaranteed. One last thing I want to say about Hannah's example. If you had switched the two sentences at the bottom, then it would have been valid. So if it read off like this: black widows are spiders, all black spiders are black widows, then the conclusion would be therefore all black widows are black. Yeah. Anyway, back to the current concept of inductive strength. If you have an argument that's inductively strong, what it means is that if all the premises are true, then the conclusion is likely to be true, but it doesn't guarantee that the conclusion is true. What could be an example like that? I know we talked about one, which is like if the sun has come up for billions of years, so therefore it will come up tomorrow. Maybe a different example besides that. What can you think of?
The NHL has had a season for over 100 years. Or that they'll have a season next year.
Good. Yeah, that's fine. So if it's happened for 100 years going, with no pauses, breaks, or differences in that whole span, then it seems pretty likely, doesn't it, that we'll see this happen again in another year. So that's inductively strong, but if a nuclear bomb went off in the United States or something and destroyed the NHL, then it wouldn't happen, and so you can't guarantee that won't happen, but it's not likely after all, because it seems like 100 years is a good span of time to base a future prediction on. Hannah, you've been alive for 18 years and you'll be alive tomorrow. I certainly do hope so, and it seems likely because 18 years is a pretty good stretch that you've been going, but life, as we all know, can't be 100% guaranteed. Tomorrow isn't promised, as some say, but it's likely, isn't it? It's very likely because of the amount of time that you've already existed. We can base a pretty probable prediction there. So that's how, okay, Jacob, Lakers wear the color yellow. All Lakers players have worn the color yellow at least once. So sure, it almost looks like it's deductive though. You know what I'm saying, Jacob? Because if Lakers wear the color yellow, then that's stated categorically. So if a player's on the Lakers, wouldn't it just need to be true that they have worn yellow rather than it being probable? Now, I don't know. I suppose you can imagine one of these players that's been taken up by the league on a 5-day contract like they've been having during the COVID problem, and maybe they didn't get to play a home game, so they only played like a couple of away games before getting sent back to the G League, and they only ever wore, the white alternate uniform or whatever, the gold one, or sorry, I should say the purple one. But anyway, yeah, I think that you intended a slightly different example, but remember, with inductive strength, the conclusion has to be a matter of probability rather than necessity. But if I work it over like I did there, Jacob, it could sort of fit. Nancy, my charger has charged my devices for years, so it will charge them tomorrow. Good. I have one of these, right now I'm using it, this MacBook charger, and if you could actually see, it's pretty frayed. That is still working, but the wires are exposed, the copper and stuff is exposed. So anyway, yeah, you have a charger, it's reliably worked for so long, but that's not an absolute guarantee that it will persist into the next case. Nonetheless, it's reasonable depending on how much time it has worked. Trung, Lakers have always had a yellow jersey. The Lakers will design another yellow jersey next season. Sure. So the Lakers, going way back to the Minneapolis Lakers when they're actually near a lake, they've always worn gold and purple. So if they've always had, you calling it yellow, fine. If they've always had that as one of their colors on the jersey, stands to reason it will happen in the next year. But maybe a massive logo and jersey redesign could happen between now and next season, at least within the realm of theoretical possibility. Okay, good. So those are inductively strong arguments. I'm very glad you guys seem to have a clear sense of all that. Today, then, here's the goal. What we're going to do is we're going to expand a little further on our developing knowledge of deductive validity. We're going to drill down into that a little bit more by learning about different forms of deductively valid argument. And we're going to learn 4 specifically today. So 4 forms of deductively valid argument. 4 forms of deductively valid argument. And this is key information because this info is needed to complete that first homework assignment. So this is something to really key in on. With deductively valid arguments, you can sometimes identify a form that they have in general. And once you are aware of the form of a deductively valid argument, you can generate infinitely many examples of that form by just plugging in some content for certain parts of the form. Okay, so here I'll explain with a quick example. This is not one of the 4 forms that I'm going to teach you in today's lesson. It's a different one, but it will help us to sort of get training wheels to the real examples we're working for. So imagine this argument here. 2 premises. lead to the conclusion. The first premise just says this: all A's are B's. All A's are B's. And now A and B are just sort of variables that stand for whatever you're going to plug in for the information in those two spaces. That's why we're leaving them general, because there could be any number of different things that substitute for A and B. But anyway, all A's are B's. Now suppose there's some individual X, which is an A. So X is an A, that's the second premise. Can you tell me what would be the logical conclusion of this form of argument? If all A's are B's and X is an A, then it does just follow by necessity that what?
X is a B.
Thank you, yes, that X is a B. Okay, so for example, suppose that I say all dogs can fly, and Lassie is a dog. It would then follow that Lassie can fly. And that would be valid, but of course not sound because of the second premise, or sorry, the first premise. Now, once you've got this form in mind, you can just spin off however many different examples you want by just consistently plugging in for A, B, and X. If I say that all men are mortal and John Lennon is a man, it would follow that John Lennon is mortal. Or if I say all, I don't know, planets are square and Earth is a planet, then it would follow that Earth is square. So just that format, it will allow you to create however many examples just following the same form and plugging in terms for A and B and X. Okay, good. Now, we are going to learn four specific forms of deductively valid argument that are mentioned in the book in chapter 8. And the first one of these four forms has a name, which is called disjunctive syllogism. Okay, so the first one is this: disjunctive syllogism. Disjunctive syllogism. I'll put it one time in the chat just so the spelling is totally clear. Okay. Cool. So disjunctive syllogism, the name that it has is based on a type of sentence that it includes. There's a type of sentence which is called, in logic and grammar, a disjunction. All right, now let me explain to you what is a disjunction. A disjunction is just a sort of technical sounding word for an either or statement or sentence. An either or sentence. Okay, and I'll add that to the chat notes as well. Disjunction, an either or sentence. Now, a disjunction is just one of the component parts of the disjunctive syllogism, but the way that a disjunction sentence looks in just abstract terms is like this. It's a sentence which has the format either A or B. Okay, either A or B. What you're looking at there is the structure of a disjunction. Now, we use this type of sentence all the time in everyday life, in the things we say and in the things that we write. If I told you that I will either have pizza or tacos for lunch, that's a disjunction. If I say to you that I will either walk to school or ride my bike, that's a disjunction. If somebody says I will either major in chemistry or biology, another disjunction. In all cases, it says this or that, for some this and for some that, to be plugged in, and that's why A and B are just these placeholders. Now, every disjunction has two components that are called the two disjuncts. So the left disjunct is the part that is to the left of the word or. Okay, so disjunct, just singular, left disjunct, and then the right-hand disjunct is the part that comes after the word or to the right. So right disjunct. So every disjunction has two disjuncts, the first and the second. In my example before that I will either major in chemistry or biology, just to make sure you know, what's the first disjunct of that case?
Biology.
Well, I think I said if you look at the transcript, chemistry was the first one mentioned. But yeah,
Oh, oops.
it's okay though. Yeah, so I will either major in chemistry or biology. In that case, the first disjunct is me majoring in chemistry. And now we can just say the second one would obviously be what?
Biology.
Right, biology. Just, rehearsing it one time. So, or in the other case, I will either get pizza or tacos for lunch. The first disjunct would be me getting the pizza. The second disjunct would be the alternative, me getting tacos or whatever. So, that's a disjunction, and I wanted to make you aware of that because it's a building block of the overall type of argument that we're now going to learn about. Okay. So, remember, the argument format that we're now learning is called disjunctive syllogism, and it has these two premises which lead to the conclusion. This is one form of a deductively valid argument. So the first statement of the disjunctive syllogism is either A or B, just a straightforward disjunction. The second premise now eliminates one of the two disjuncts, and that is negating it by saying not. So not A, for example. Now, just using logic and common sense, I bet you can figure out what would be the logical conclusion here. If we have these two statements as truth, either A or B, also not A, what do you figure would be the conclusion then?
B.
B, correct, that's right. So either I will walk or take the bus to school, but I'm not going to walk, so I'll take the bus. Maybe a better example would be I will either take the bus or walk, but the bus isn't running, and so therefore I will walk. I will either eat pizza or tacos for lunch, but the pizza place is closed, so I'll get the tacos. I will either major in anthropology or biology, but I decided not anthropology, so it's biology. So that's how these disjunctive syllogisms work. Nothing, I hope, too complicated. It's really just a statement which starts it off, which claims that one out of two possibilities will be true. And if we can eliminate one, then the alternative is the logical conclusion of the argument. Disjunctive syllogism is sometimes called by a second name. It's got this like AKA alias, and I want that to be something you know. So sometimes it's also referred to by the label argument from elimination. Argument from, elimination. It's called argument from elimination because of how we eliminate one of the disjuncts in the second premise. Okay, so like when you eliminate that one, the other one remains, and then that's the conclusion. So my friend will either arrive in Terminal 1 or Terminal 2. Terminal 1 is closed, therefore they're showing up in Terminal 2. The murderer was either Smith or Jones, but DNA has ruled out Smith, so therefore it's Jones. You know, just in all these cases, we narrow it down to two possibilities, this or that. One is then negated or eliminated, and then the other one's true. Because of that feature, that we eliminate one of the two disjuncts, and then we get to the other one at the end, there's a second possible way that it can play out. You can also have this pattern, okay? So either A or B, not B. And in this instance, what would be the conclusion, you think?
A.
Correct, yes, just A. Either A or B, not B, so therefore A. I will either go to the concert or go to class, but I'm not going to go to class, so I'll go to the concert, or I will either watch a movie or go for a jog, or lift weights, but the gym is closed, so I'll just watch a movie at home. You know, it basically doesn't matter which of the two disjuncts is eliminated, but whichever one is, it's the other alternative that remains as the valid conclusion. Now, having taught this enough times, I've seen that there's some types of errors that sometimes are made when students report on the info. And the most common error with this, I'm going to try and help you to avoid that error, is when people write it out in this way. So suppose that someone gave this as their answer about disjunctive syllogism, like on a quiz, if I asked you, give me an example of disjunctive syllogism, and someone wrote this. Either A or B, A, and therefore not B. So this is just not valid. So just don't do that. The thing you just have to remember is that the second premise does not affirm a disjunct, resulting in the negation of the other, but it is always the second premise that eliminates one of the disjuncts, resulting in the assertion of the other one.
Excuse me, Professor.
Yes?
I think I know how to fix this argument.
Which argument?
Instead of the one you crossed out,
right.
Instead of just putting A, you would put only A. I think that would help.
No, it doesn't. Because here's the thing I was going to explain. In logic, the word or is used in what's called the inclusive sense rather than the exclusive sense. And in everyday conversation, we usually think of the word or in the exclusive way. So like here, I'll try and explain that. When you normally say this or that, like a disjunction, what you think it means is one or the other, but not what?
One or the other, not. I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Okay. When you say like to somebody, I will either major in chemistry or biology, for example, you normally would assume that what that means is that you're going to pick how many majors out of those two?
Only one.
Only one, but not both. But in logic, okay, the word or allows for both to be true, and the disjunction is still correct. So if I tell you that I will either major in biology or chemistry, it's still consistent with that if I'm double majoring in both. What's inconsistent with that assertion is if I like major in English, something that's neither one. Okay, so from the elimination of one disjunct, we can conclude that the other is true, but from the assertion of one, we cannot conclude that the other one's false. So even if A is true, that doesn't rule out B being true as well. But if A is false, it does guarantee that B must be true. So like in the double major example, if someone you knew, like you heard them say, I'm going to either major in anthropology or biology, and then you saw somewhere that they're like taking advanced classes in anthropology, you could not conclude that they're not also majoring in biology. But if you knew that they've taken no classes in anthropology and it was already previously asserted as a truth that one of those two things will be their major, now you can conclude that they chose the other major because it has to be at least one of the two. It can't be 0 out of 2, but it could be 2 out of 2. Okay, Michael, does that make sense to you? So that's the only reason why we couldn't have it go in the way of saying only A. Because even you might be thinking only A, therefore B is definitely not true, but that would actually contradict the assertion made here because either A or B does not imply only A. You'd have to say either A or B and not B to get to only A. Okay?
That makes more sense.
Okay, very good. Yeah, thank you so much for the question. And that's a good thing to ask, actually, because that's one thing that does confuse people, as I was trying to show. So anyway, reminding you, what's the right format? Not like this. The second premise has to be a not statement. It has to say not for one of the two things, leading us to the conclusion of the other. Okay. So that's the disjunctive syllogism, everybody. Let's see if someone can generate an example. Easy enough. Really, the only thought at all is coming up with the first premise, and then from there, the rest just automatically flows from there. So let's see somebody hit me with a nice example of a disjunctive syllogism, aka argument from elimination. You can call it either thing, by the way. Both names are valid, or both, I should say, are acceptable. I know it takes a second, so I'm just giving you your time, but go ahead. Don't keep us waiting forever. When you think you can, just type out or say whatever example you've got.
I'm going.
Okay, go ahead, Blake.
I'm going to get either In-N-Out or Chick-fil-A for dinner tonight. I'm not going to get In-N-Out, so therefore I'm going to get Chick-fil-A.
Good, right, that's good. Now, that's a fine example. I'll just add a few thoughts to each example when I hear it. Sometimes disjunctive syllogisms the best way to state them is like when you eliminate something because you receive information that it can't be true. When you make a choice, though, it's not really so much like deductively reasoning towards the last possibility, because you just choose one over the other. So when you say I will either get what was it, In-N-Out or Chick-fil-A, and then you said not getting In-N-Out, so getting Chick-fil-A, you could have like said something along the lines of I will either get In-N-Out or Chick-fil-A, but In-N-Out is closed, or something like that, so that you're forced in a way to take the other option instead of you just electing for one over the other. But that's not really a problem. I'm just saying, like, it sounds more like a piece of reasoning instead of just a decision. But yeah, go ahead.
Would I be able to say, like, I'm going to get In-N-Out or Chick-fil-A for dinner. In-N-Out's line is too long, so I'm going to go to Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, exactly. I mean, but again, the first example you gave, I would still give you full credit for that. I'm just kind of pointing out how when you think about the argument, and it's not just like memorizing the content from the class, but thinking how to apply it in reality, it's more like I'm narrowing down two options and, now I figured out, somehow got information that one can't be true. But that's good. Very good. Yes.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
No problem. Let me see, a few others here are in the chat. Okay, so there's a bunch. I'll either play video games or read a book. My game console's dead, so I'll read a book. Nice. It's a good set of options. That's Hannah Mansfield, Hannah Canfield. I didn't realize you guys had such a similar name, but anyway, yeah. I'm either going to watch a comedy or a horror movie, but horror movies are scary, therefore I'm going to watch a comedy. Okay, cool, yeah. Sometimes we like to be scared, but I can take the point that if it's scary, maybe it's not worth watching. Tom, I either diet or gain weight. Gaining weight is unhealthy, so I diet. Yeah, I mean, but gaining weight being unhealthy doesn't mean that you can't just become unhealthy. So you might just say something along the lines of like, I don't know, I refuse to gain weight, or like, that's like a choice, but that'd be the way of saying it, though, to like sort of mirror the logic used in these examples. Carly, either pigeons or government robots. Okay, the fake birds theory. Either pigeons are government robots or they're animals. They're not government robots, and therefore pigeons are animals. That's fine. It's a great example, so why apologize? I like it, actually. Nancy, I want to go either to Costco or Sam's Club. But Sam's Club is too far, so I'm going to Costco. That's fair. Michael, I will either go for a jog or I'll exercise in my house. It's raining, so I can't jog, and therefore I'll exercise in the house. That's good. Lucas, I'll either fail or pass the class. My final grade was 20, therefore I failed. Well, no, Lucas, one issue with your example. The second statement doesn't eliminate one of the two, so maybe you would have to word it just slightly differently, like I didn't pass, because it sounds more like you're asserting that you did fail instead of denying that one of those two things happened. So you have to say I didn't pass or I didn't fail, because remember, the second premise always has to stand as like a negation of some kind. But I totally see your example is fair. Karen, I want to buy ice cream or a smoothie. The ice cream shop is closed, so I'm going to the smoothie shop. Yeah. Now, like if you're, I don't know, a detective and you knew there were two suspects and then one could be ruled out by like DNA evidence, then you would know that it was the other person if, say, they were the only two people present that possibly could have committed the crime at the scene or whatever. Okay, so good examples all around, everybody. I'm glad that we have a clear understanding of that. But that's just the first of the four forms of deductively valid arguments. So there's three more to come. The nice thing about these other three, though, is that they're kind of like three members of the same family, if you will. They all are under one broad umbrella because they're all three called hypothetical syllogisms. Okay, so there's a total of four things today. One is disjunctive syllogism, and then there are three different types of hypothetical syllogisms. So here we have three hypothetical syllogisms. The word syllogism just refers to like a valid argument in logic which has two premises. So one of them was the disjunctive syllogism, which uses a disjunction. These hypothetical syllogisms use a different type of sentence, which is called a hypothetical, or in some cases people call it a conditional. So let me talk to you and explain what that type of sentence is. A hypothetical is the word we use to refer to an if-then sentence, okay? So, an if-then sentence. All right, now, let me draw over here just one, like the format of a conditional or a hypothetical. They have this structure. If A, then B. If A, then B. Now, A and B, just like with the disjunction, they will just be placeholders for whatever content that we will plug in for the place of A and B. And there's two parts to every hypothetical. Like in a disjunction, I said there's the left disjunct and the right disjunct. There's also two component parts of all the hypotheticals. There's the if part and then the then part. And they have different names. So the if clause is referred to as the antecedent. Okay? Antecedent, that's the if clause. The then clause of the conditional, then be, that is called the consequent. The consequent. Okay, antecedent means what comes first or what comes before. So that is the thing that is supposed to be the cause or the basis on which the consequent follows. So like if I say to you that if I run, then I will sweat, that's just one example. And the first thing is the running, which leads to the consequence of the sweat, right? So anybody knowing Spanish, antes, doesn't this mean before? So what's prior or before is the antecedent, and what comes afterwards is the consequent. Now, knowing that, I can now build up for you one of the three forms of hypothetical syllogism that's based on this type of sentence. Okay, so who are the different hypothetical syllogisms? The first one is called by the name Modus Ponens. Modus Ponens. Sometimes I've noticed students mistake my handwriting on that, so I'm just going to put that one in the chat so that the spelling is unambiguous. Modus Ponens. Okay. Now, Modus Ponens has this structure. So again, two premises, which lead to the conclusion below. The first premise of Modus Ponens just says a hypothetical. So it says if A, then B. Okay, if A, then B. Sorry here. Okay, and the second premise says it simply asserts, it affirms A. So even without having ever studied this before, I bet you most of us have the sort of ability to judge. What do you think would be the conclusion? From if A, then B, and then A, what do we get? B, correct, Lucas, right. So like in the other example of a hypothetical, I gave the example of if I run, then I will sweat. So plugging in the rest, it would be like, if I run, then I will sweat. I did run, and therefore I sweated. Yeah? That's just one example. If I don't know, don't wear a mask, then I'll get sick. I didn't wear a mask, so I therefore got sick. Just, you know, to refer to something maybe of current relevance. If I, let's see, if I'm in Orange County, then I'm in California. I am in Orange County, so therefore I'm in California. Just another piece of deductive reasoning where we start off with a hypothetical. We affirm that whatever the if part is true. And since A leads to B, that just shows that the conclusion is the consequent of the aforementioned conditional here. Now, there's, again, infinitely many examples. If I fall off my bike, I will scrape my knee. I fell off my bike, therefore I scraped my knee. If I work out, then I will get fit. I worked out, then I did get, therefore I got fit. So I'm just, you know, supplying you with a few to get you started thinking about it. But let's see, can anybody come up with some? It's probably not too bad, right? Let me see if you can come up with something on your side.
If I don't wear sunscreen, then I'll get sunburnt.
Yeah.
Didn't wear sunscreen, so therefore I got sunburnt.
Perfect. Yeah, that's exactly the kind of example you want. One thing will lead to something, and then we assume or say that the one thing happened, which leads to that. So the following consequence then becomes true. Good. Okay, here we go, Hannah. If my dog gets sick, I'll take her to the vet. My dog got sick, therefore I took her to the vet. Oh, I know that you do have a dog. I hope that's not sound, but if it is sound, I'm sure that she's recovered and she's doing well. If a child takes cookies, he gets put in timeout. He took the cookies and therefore he got put in timeout. Yes, that's a fine example too, Michael. Hannah Canfield, if I study, I'll get good grades. I studied and therefore I got good grades. Yes, good. Good examples all around. Anybody else want to throw something out there? Or let me see. Okay, Tom, if I stay in a calorie deficit, I'll lose weight. I'm in a calorie deficit and therefore I lose weight. Sure. Now, being in a calorie deficit, yeah, that's how you lose weight. It's one way to lose it. But if it's just for a single day, it might not make a big difference in the long run. But you know, I'm not going to be that picky. Nonetheless, it's a fair example and it fits the right form. Anybody have something else random? That's fine already, though. So yeah, Modus Ponens. Seems like that's coming through pretty well and clearly to you. But there's just a few things I have to say because, as always, there's room for error. Students can make mistakes, and I want to try and help you not to. So here's the most common error that people do make with this. One more from Karen. If I don't wear a jacket, I will get hypothermia. Well, you say I got cold, therefore I got hypothermia, but the second premise shouldn't say I got cold because that's not the same as the antecedent. Don't you see, Karen? The antecedent says if I don't wear a jacket. Slightly different statement than saying I got cold. A person can feel cold wearing a jacket, maybe if they're hypersensitive to low temperatures or whatever. So you know how you would revise that to make it valid, or at least fit the right form? You just have to edit that. So what would be the edit, if you could tell me? Please let me know. What will be the revision to that? Sorry, I think you're muted right now.
I'm trying to figure it out. I actually don't know. I'm trying to figure it out right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, who can help her? Like, just tell us, everybody. What's the right second premise? It's not I got cold. It's just got to match.
She didn't wear a jacket.
Didn't wear a jacket, right? So it's just got to match. Same exact words. If I don't wear a jacket, then I'll get hypothermia. This shouldn't say anything except I don't wear a jacket because that's the same. Same thing, right? So that's all. And then you would have your conclusion that, yeah, you got the hypothermia. Okay, good. I know you're thinking, Karen, like, what do you mean? Like, me getting cold is not wearing a jacket, but it's not exactly the same words. And it's very, very, like, picky, you know? Like, you have to be very precise. This is, like, about logic, right? So you have to kind of make sure to always model it on the same exact structure. But that's good. Okay. Now, I was saying now about what is an error that people sometimes make. Lucas, you say if A then B, not A, therefore B. No, that doesn't work. No, I mean, why would it? Say if I run, then I sweat. I didn't run, and therefore I sweated. That doesn't make sense, right? So like if A didn't happen, why would we think that B does if A is something that leads to B? To the contrary, you'd think that if A didn't happen, then B wouldn't have, but that's also not valid. So no, there's no different form that this could take. It's only this. A leads to B, so from A, we can conclude B. That's all. But here's an error that is made sometimes, all right? So sometimes people will make this mistake where they'll just get it backwards. You know, if you're just thinking in terms of letters and stuff, you might like get mixed up. Like, what is it? Is it B? Is it A? Just keep in mind and remember, like common sense, one thing leads to another. So if the first thing happens, then the second thing will, but not the other way around. So this is not valid. But people do make that mistake, and I've seen students make that error. I hope you don't make it. That would be like saying if I run, then I sweat. I sweated, and therefore I ran. But no, it's not valid because, for example, you could be sweating, but not just on account of running, because you're nervous, because you lifted weights, or because you did anything else. What we can say for sure is that running would lead to the sweat, but sweat is not always a surefire indication that running happened. Or another example that's maybe a little easier for you. If I'm in California, then I'm in the United States. Fair enough? Okay. Suppose that I then say I'm in the United States. Do those two facts establish for sure that I'm in California? No, because I could be in the 49 other states and still be in the country, and I wouldn't have to be in California. So from being in California, yes, it follows that I'm in the U.S., but from being in the U.S., it does not necessarily follow that I'm in just one part of the U.S., California. If I, let me think of other examples that you guys gave here and try and show how they wouldn't work in this example. Okay, yeah, how about this? Michael, your example. If a child takes cookies, he gets put in timeout. He took the cookies, therefore he got put in timeout. That's good. But what if somebody said, if a child takes the cookies, then he gets put in timeout? He got put in timeout, therefore he took the cookies. No, because although he got put in timeout, it might be for a different reason. This is one thing that certainly leads to being put in timeout, But from the fact that someone's in timeout, we can't reason backwards to that as the cause necessarily. Okay? So what you have there, Koi, if I don't clean my room, my mom will nag me. I didn't clean it, and therefore I got nagged. That's good. Yes, correct example. So Hannah, you say it's confounding factors that make that invalid. It's just because it's not guaranteed to be true, Hannah. If I'm in the United States, it doesn't guarantee that I'm in California. But if I'm in California, it does guarantee that I'm in the United States. So from the assertion of the antecedent, we get the consequent, but not the opposite way around. Okay, like, let me think of this. If I'm a professor, then I graduated college. That's a fact. You can't be in my position with no degree. So if I'm a professor, then I graduated college. And in the real example, it would be, I am a professor, so I did graduate college. That would be valid. But if I said, if I'm a professor, I graduated college, so therefore I'm a professor, that doesn't follow, because you can do anything else with your life. You don't have to be a professor when you graduate college. But certainly if you are a professor, that implies that you had graduated. Not the other way around, though. Graduation can lead to any number of different career choices. But if that is the career choice that you end up with, then it certainly implies a certain level of educational attainment. Okay, so long story short, guys, not to belabor the point too much, it doesn't work from B to A. It's got to be A first in line 2, and then B at the end. So what you're looking at here is wrong. So just to make sure that we don't get too caught up on the wrong version of it, one more time to look at the right version. Simply, if A, then B, A, and therefore B. That's Modus Ponens. Now, Modus Ponens has a secondary title as well. Like when I told you about Disjunctive Syllogism, some call it by the name Argument from Elimination. Modus Ponens is sometimes known by the side name of Affirming the Antecedent. Okay, so like that's another AKA alias. Affirming the Antecedent. Okay, and I'll put that in the chat just so it's clear to see. Yeah, affirming the antecedent. Yeah, so why do we call it affirming the antecedent? Because of what happens on the second premise line. That's just why it's called that also, because on the second premise, we affirm the antecedent. We say it's true, and that is what leads to the ultimate conclusion below of the consequent part. Okay, so that much has come out, and we're good on that. We have just 2 more argument forms for the day. So there's disjunctive syllogism, and then I told you there's 3 hypothetical syllogisms. Modus Ponens is just the first of that little trio of hypothetical syllogisms. So here is like Modus Ponens' sibling, Modus Tollens. Similar, but with a slight difference. Okay, Modus Tollens is the name of this one. Okay, Modus Tollens. Okay, so here's how the Modus Tollens argument goes down. Once again, we start off in the same way as before, so that much is the same, if A then B. But the second premise of this one goes in a different direction, and what it says is not B. So, if A then B, also not B, so therefore, what do you think follows in this case? Just reasoning through it logically. If we know that A would lead to B, but B is false.
A.
Not A, yes. Not A. That's Modus Tollens. And let me just try and explain to you the reasoning in the example here. If you know that A certainly leads to B, but that B is false, then of course A is false because A would have caused B. And so from the fact that B is not true, we know that whatever would have caused it also did not happen. So like, as an example, if I run, then I will sweat. But suppose I'm not sweating though. Clearly I didn't run, because had I ran, I would have sweated. But if I'm not sweating, then the antecedent events that would cause sweat, of course, did not happen either. So if I had fallen from the Empire State Building, I would be dead. Yeah? But I'm not dead. And so therefore, one thing you know is true, and that's what?
You didn't fall off the Empire State Building?
No, I definitely didn't. Because, if I did, I would be dead. I'm not. I'm not dead. So whatever would have caused death to me has not happened. And that's one thing that would have, So if A then B plus not B amounts to saying that A is also not true. Okay? Suppose that I say this. If I'm in Orange County, then I'm in California, but I'm not even in the whole state of California. And so therefore what? You just following my example? Let me know what the right conclusion would be there. Did you hear it? I'll say it again. If I'm in Orange County, then I'm in California. But I am not in California, and therefore you can say what?
You're not in Orange County.
Not in Orange County, correct. Because if I'm not in the whole state, then I'm not in any part of the state. Being in that part would, of course, imply that I'm in the state that it's a part of. But if I'm not in the whole region, then I can't be in the Orange County part of that overall region. Okay? Let's see. And oh yes, disaffirming. So Lucas and Carly, I like these questions. Let me tell you, Lucas, you're actually right. I was going to mention that, so you're very sharp to say this. The side name, the separate title of Modus Ponens, Tollens, is denying the consequent, right? Denying the consequent. And it's called denying the consequent because of this feature on the second premise, where we do deny the consequent, which leads to the denial of the antecedent part. You say, Carly, disaffirming the antecedent. Well, yes, the conclusion results in the denial of the antecedent. But before that, the prior step in the reasoning is to reject the consequent, which then leads to that as the ultimate conclusion. So you both have, I think, something correct in what you're saying. But let's not get too many different names. We can just say it's denying the consequent or modus tollens. But Carly, in line with what you've asked, yes, the conclusion statement of all the modus tollens arguments are the opposite of the original antecedent. Yeah. So suppose that if someone's a professor, then they graduated college, but they never graduated college, so obviously they wouldn't be a professor in that case. Let's see, if the Lakers make the playoffs, then they need to make trades, but they didn't make any trades. Today was the trade deadline. They didn't do anything. They, sticking with their roster, so they won't make the playoffs. Just maybe an argument someone can make about sports. Okay, so you guys understand modus tollens. Let me say a few things more though. But before I do that, actually, let me hear an example or a few from you, if you can. Just follow the format. It's not too hard. The main thing is to just get the hypothetical sentence first, and then from there, the rest of it should be kind of automatic, because all you got to do is go in the right steps. Deny the consequent first, then result in the denial of whatever the antecedent was. So let's see what you've got to come up with here. Takes a moment, I know, to think, to write, but yeah, let's see what you can come up with here for me. The if-then part is starting it off. Okay, Karen, if I eat cupcakes, I'll gain weight. Well, Karen, so we got to correct it right off. You just got to see. So someone will tell us what's wrong with that, or maybe you will. But no, that's not right. What's wrong with that? Because I don't want to just tell you straight up until someone else can kind of point it out. This is a teachable moment, but meet me halfway. So what is your statement, Lucas? You're saying that's the wrong part of the argument? Blake, go ahead.
Oh, I had my own example.
Okay, I'll get to your example, but I want to focus on Karen's first, because anytime there's something wrong, it has to be immediately corrected, because you can't keep going forward with the wrong understanding. So I did not gain weight is the second premise, right, Tom? Look at this. If A, then B. The second part is not B, but what you wrote, Karen, is not A. When you say I didn't eat cupcakes, that's denying the A part. You can see that, right, Karen? Yeah, so you just got to make that change. The second premise has to match the consequent here. You have to deny whatever's on the right side, not on the left. Okay, so if you had written, if I eat cupcakes, I'll gain weight. I did not gain weight, and therefore I didn't eat cupcakes. You just got to switch the second and third parts around, and then you'd be correct. Okay, good. Now, I'll get to you too, Blake, but let me see some of the written ones. Michael, if Kyle ignores the timer, the bread will be burnt, but the bread is not burnt. You say because he didn't ignore the timer, only slight correction there, Michael. Remember, because is a premise indicator word, not a conclusion indicator word. So you would want to rather say therefore, thus, hence, or something like that at the end. Okay, good. Now, Hannah, if I study, I'll get good grades. Same mistake though, Hannah. What's wrong with your example? Okay, you corrected it
Yeah, I
already.
fixed
I
it.
I see it now. Okay, yeah, but see what I was telling you? Like, that's an easy mistake to make. And actually, like, after hearing your examples, I was going to tell you what a most common mistake is. It's this common mistake. That's what people always do when they make an error. They do this thing that some of you have just done, like this. No, wrong. That's not correct. So it has to specifically be the negation of the consequent on the second premise, which leads in the end to the negation of the antecedent. So memorize that if you can. Let's see next. Rayanne, if I go out to lunch, I'll be broke, but because I didn't go out for lunch, I'm not broke. Once again, though, Rayanne, why is everybody doing the same thing? Negation of B, not of A. You feel me, Rayanne? Where are we at? You look at your example. If I go out to lunch, I'll be broke. What's the second premise supposed to say? Yes, you see it now. But let's not make that mistake again. Keep it clear. It's not B. And then that leads to not A. It's okay, but it's tough love. I got to do that for you guys, because if I don't, you'll keep going forward making the mistake again. You don't want to make those mistakes. Right now, it's fine because it's practice, but you're going to ultimately be taking quizzes and tests with nobody's help, and you will have to remember this. So you'll remember that I corrected you, and you remember that it's not B. The second premise is not B, and then it leads to not A. B is just a letter. What am I talking about? The right-hand part of the first sentence. Okay, so like whatever's the last part that comes after then, that's what gets immediately negated, leading to the conclusion below. Okay, so let me continue here. Jordan, if I'm rich, then I have a lot of money. I don't have a lot of money, therefore I'm not rich. That's good. Blake, was this example you're going to say verbally? I suppose it might have been.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So you say, if I go to Disneyland, I won't have $100 in my wallet. I still have $100 in my wallet, so I didn't go to Disneyland. Good example. Hold that thought, because I'm going to come back to an example like that in a minute, because it involves double negation, your case, which is good. Hannah says, if I go swimming, my hair will get wet, and it's not wet, so I didn't go swimming. That's very clear, right? That's a good example, because obviously swimming leads to wet hair, but if you don't have wet hair, then you must not have gone swimming. I mean, I guess a person could wear like a cap or whatever, but leaving that aside. Lucas, if my internet works, then I'll attend class. I'm not in class, so the internet's out. If I wash my face, I'll break out in pimples. Will not break out in pimples, but you did break out, and therefore you didn't wash your face. Good. Let me add to some of these examples. Very good work. With a quick little point. Now, suppose that I wrote this. If I'm sad, then I will not go to work. Now, this is going to be a Modus Ponens argument, right? If that's the first premise, what should the second premise say if it's going to reverse the consequent here?
You went to work.
I went to work, right. And therefore, the conclusion would be that what?
Therefore, you are not sad.
Sad, right, yeah. Okay, now, the only reason I'm mentioning an example like this, it's kind of in line with like Blake, your example, and in a sense also kind of like your example, Nancy, because in both of your guys' case, the consequent statement in the original hypothetical is a negation. And then when you negate the negation, it becomes an affirmative statement again. That's called double negation. Okay, so like if the original consequence written in the affirmative, of course the reverse of it is the denial where it says like not. So if this had said, if I am sad, then I will go to work, then the second premise would be the opposite of that, which would be not going. In this case, though, because the original consequent is stated in the negative, the negation of that is the statement that I went to work. Now, we don't always talk about double negations, but it is a well-known part of our language, and we do use it sometimes when we're not even thinking. Like, have you ever heard somebody, in reaction to somebody's claim, say, well, they're not wrong? That's like equivalent to saying that they are correct, you know, because not being wrong means they're negating the claim that they are wrong. In other words, they're right. Let me see if you can apply this really fast. Right now, at this time, are you not sitting in front of your computer? Let me get that answer. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, you are not sitting in front of your computer. Blake, I'm sure you'll catch this in a minute, but like to the statement that you're not sitting in front of your computer, it's not true. I mean, I'm assuming you're obviously watching the lecture, right? So you have to be facing some type of computer or whatever telecommunications device. So you're not in front of the computer or whatever. You're not attending class right now. That's equivalent to saying that you are attending class. Yes, Michael, it is similar to math. A double negative is therefore a positive. So if I say it's not raining, what does that mean?
It is raining.
Yes, that it is raining. Okay, good. In ordinary life, we usually don't want to make things overcomplicated when we talk, so we wouldn't say, oh, it's not raining outside. But if somebody said it's not raining and then we saw that it was, we'd be like, no, and would be denying that what they've said is true. So it would be the equivalent statement to no, it's not raining. Okay, so anyway, just keeping that in mind, because sometimes you'll see Modus Ponens' argument where the consequent is stated like this, and then just keep yourself wise to the fact that whatever the reverse of it will be, we'll just have to consider the phrasing of the original consequent. Okay. Yeah, good. And I think I told you through our discussion here, we were able to sort of work through some incorrect examples of Modus Ponens. And the most common mistake that is made is the one that I mentioned earlier, where the person denies the wrong part in the second premise, which would make the argument invalid. Okay. So one more hypothetical syllogism, and then we're all done with the concepts that we needed for today. So I told you there's like a trio of siblings, if you will, in the hypothetical syllogism family. The family resemblance they have is that they all have an if-then statement in them. But of course, they have their little minor differences. Modus Ponens affirms the antecedent in the second line. Modus Tollens denies the consequent in the second line. And here's the third member of that little clan. This is what we can call the chain argument. Okay, everybody, chain argument. So the chain argument is like just a little different than the other two, but it does start off the same way. So that much is in common. If A, then B. Now, in the case of chain argument, the second premise is going to pick up where the previous one left off, and it's going to be another conditional statement. So the second one is going to say, like, if B, which was caused by A, well, then if B, that leads to something else, C. So we have this. If A, then B occurs. And if B, then C follows from that. Now, the conclusion of the argument is one more conditional. Let me say this. The chain argument can actually have more than two premises. It could go on indefinitely long, but we're going to keep it brief for the sake of illustration here. And Lucas, you've already seemed to have it. The conclusion, the proper conclusion is this statement. If A, then C. All right. So assuming that A leads to B and B leads to C, we thus can conclude that if A occurs through a sort of mediated chain of events, C will be an ultimate result. Okay, so like if I sleep in, I will miss the bus, and if I miss the bus, then I'll be late to class. So therefore, if I sleep in, then I'll be late to class. Like just one example there. And Carly, you say, wasn't it called an imperfect syllogism because it could have more than two premises? Yes, that's true. A perfect syllogism always contains two premises merely. And in the chain argument, it's possible to have additional premises. So it is kind of a little bit of a breed apart for that little reason. But yeah, it's not a major distinction, but it's something worthy to point out. That's fair. So like another example, like to highlight what you're saying there, actually, Carly. Suppose that we had a three-premise chain argument. The third premise would say if C, then D. And then in that case, what would be the conclusion, you think? Similar to the previous example, but we've extended it to another.
If A, then D.
Yes, if A, then D in this case. So the only rule you need to remember is that in the chain argument, we have a chain of conditionals linked together because the next premise uses the consequent of the previous premise as its antecedent. And then the conclusion is simply going to join together the first antecedent from premise one with the last consequent on the final premise line. So in this instance, it's A linked together with D at the bottom. But if it was a simple two-premise example, it would be A linked to C at the bottom. So 3 premises. If I run, then I will sweat, and if I sweat, then I will need to take a shower, and if I take a shower, then I will need to have a towel. So if I run, then I will need to have a towel. Or if I don't study, then I will fail my test. If I fail my test, then I won't transfer, and if I don't transfer, then I will be broke. So if I don't study, then I will be broke. Like just another possible example of an argument that has this type of format. Could it be infinite? Well, actually, no, it can't be infinite, Blake, because for technical reasons, every argument has to have a finite set of premises. So it has to be a natural number n, where n is the number of premises, but it can be indefinitely large. But it couldn't be like actually infinite, because then you would never actually be able to exhaust the assertions to get to the conclusion. So anyway, yeah, but that's a good question too. Now, when people make mistakes with this, like the number one mistake I notice people making is that they don't state the conclusion as a hypothetical. They just say like A and C, or like just C. Like I've seen people say if I let's see, run, then I will sweat, and if I sweat, then I'll need to take a shower, so I took a shower. That's not the conclusion. The conclusion is a hypothetical. It's always got to be stated in the form of if-then. So if you just said like A and C, that wouldn't be correct. Or if you just said like just by itself C, again, that's not correct. The thing is, think about it. Nobody's asserting that these things actually have happened. It is all hypothetical. So if I tell you that like if I fall from the Empire State Building, then I will suffer a fatal injury, and if I suffer a fatal injury, then I won't be able to teach class on Tuesday. I'm not saying that I'm gonna try and jump off the Empire State Building, and so I won't be there on Tuesday. It's all hypothetical. So like, okay, so if I had, then that would have been a result. It's an if-then. So you just got to make sure to not change that wording. If A, then C for the conclusion here. Okay, so let me see anybody try their hand at a few examples like this, and then we'll have enough time left over to just quickly tell you about the homework assignment, and you'll be good to go for the weekend. So let's see maybe a few different chain argument examples. Just, following this format. A couple premises or however many. You can have more if you want, but let's see what you've got to come up with. Okay, Tom. If I didn't do my homework, then I'll get 0 grade for the homework. If I got 0 grade for homework, then I won't get an A for the class. Therefore, if I didn't do my homework, then I won't get an A for this class. That's good, yes. Okay, in your case, you have A leading to B, B leading to C, and then A leads to C. Good. Hannah, if I go out to dinner with my friend, I will go to In-N-Out. If I go to In-N-Out, I will get a shake. If I get a shake, I'll buy my friend a shake as well. Therefore, if I go out to dinner, I will be buying my friend a shake. Good, yeah, that's fine. Yours had 3 premises leading to the conclusion, but it's all good. Let me see if anyone else has something for me. Hannah, if I take good notes, then I will study efficiently. If I study efficiently, I will get a good grade on the test. Therefore, if I take good notes, I will get a good grade on the test. Yes. Now, I know that it's just probably because of limitations of our format, the way that it's being typed out. But keep in mind that if you were answering these questions like in a typed assignment or a written assignment, you'd want to make sure to distinguish the premises from each other by using standard form like we have here. But nonetheless, I know that's just because we're typing in the limitations that we have. Karen, are you trying to speak? Or no, no, okay, you're talking to somebody else. All right, that's good. Let's see what else. Nancy, if I pet the dog, then my hand will be dirty. If my hand is dirty, then I can't safely eat my food. And therefore, if I pet the dog, I can't safely eat my food. Sure, fair enough. You always got to practice hygiene, right? All right, good examples, guys. I feel like I'm not seeing a problem. Let me see Michael's. If I don't eat, I'll be hungry. If I get hungry, then I'll starve. Thus, if I don't eat, I'll starve. Sure. Although just merely being hungry doesn't necessarily lead to starvation, but as stated, it's valid, whether or not it's sound. So very good. Okay, now, we're now in position to go over what the homework assignment will be. Homework number 1. So it's due 1 week from today in class. That's Thursday, February 17th. And it's exercise 8-3, which is on page 268 of the book. And there's a set of examples there in the workbook. The exercise involves 10. And they're listed from A through J. So that's A through J. Now, the way that the problems look on the page, this is for the 5th edition, by the way. Anybody here is using the 4th edition? If so, let me know, because I'll tell you the different page number that it involves. Okay, a couple of you are. If you're using the 4th edition, the same info is there, but it's just on a different page. For the 4th edition, it would be page 252. But it's the exact same exercise, and it's also letter A through J. So, okay, for our 5th edition folks, which I think most of you probably have, it's this. Anybody who happens to have acquired an older 4th edition, that's fine, and that would be your page number for the same. Now, what you're going to see there is a set of 10 examples, and they're all about the hypothetical syllogisms. So this homework assignment does not have anything to do with the disjunctive syllogism that I started with today, teaching you the either or one. We'll save that for later quizzes, tests, and things. But for this homework assignment, it's just drilling you on the 3 hypothetical syllogisms. So it's about modus ponens, modus tollens, and the chain argument. And basically what the written examples in the book show is like the parts of an argument with one part missing. And so what you're required to do is to write in the missing statement that's not included in the text, and then just tell me what kind of argument it is. So you got to write the whole argument out in standard form, like where the premises are separated from each other. They're not running along on one continuous line. And then there's a division between them and the conclusion below. A Blake question, yeah?
Would we be able to turn this in via PDF?
Yeah, you can, but I mean, I'll accept it in person in class, because we will be in person. But if there's anybody that's not able to be there or something like that, then yes, they could submit me an email copy before class time on Thursday.
Okay, so if I want to just like type it, should I just print it out and then give it to you?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I like taking the physical copies, but if you, for any reason, can't print it, then it's okay to submit it electronically. But my default is to collect them in class at the beginning on Thursday. So
okay.
You have every option. You can print it. You can do handwritten. If you do handwritten, just make sure it's legible. But typed is nice. It's just up to you either way. That's fine. Is that good? With your question, you got it?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, sure. Yeah, it's both. It could be either. Now, so like this is not one of the problems in the book on this homework assignment, but they're like this. So this kind of is like a little practice for you. Suppose that you just saw this written out. If John proposes, then he'll get married, but John won't get married. Okay, and it's like that's all that it gives you. You have to like know, based on your knowledge of these forms of argument, what statement's missing. Wait, sorry, what is this 1 and 2? Or just 1 since it has A through J? I'm confused about that question. What are we referring to, Tom and Hannah? In the book. 1 or 2 what?
So in yeah. So in the book on the
part
page.
Part 1. Okay, yes, thank you. That's good. It's just part 1. So it's not the other parts. It's just A through J. Yes, it's not the like second series of questions that follows after numeral 2. Yeah, just part 1, A through J. Very good. In this case, though, what will be our conclusion that's missing? Therefore, John did not propose. Yes, John did not propose. And what will be the form of this argument? This one, you've got 3 options: modus ponens, modus tollens, chain argument. It's modus tollens, right? So if this were like the question on the homework, you would have to write it in the proper standard form, like so. Okay, so like list of premises separate from each other. So like when one premise ends, if you're typing, you hit the return key and go down to the next available line. Or if you're writing in a notebook paper, you'd go down to the next ledger line below when you enter the next statement. And anyway, you would then indicate which sentence was missing. I'm doing that with an asterisk here, and it's the missing conclusion. You can highlight it, you can circle it, you can star it, but I want you to show with a mark what the missing sentence was that you had to add. So that's it. You have to just write the whole argument in standard form, supply the missing sentence, circle, star, or highlight it, and tell me which one of the three forms that it was: modus ponens, or the chain argument.
If we're typing it, do you want us to put in the numbers too, like you have it on the whiteboard?
Oh, like numbering the premises. I like to do that, and I think it's a good habit because it sort of almost like forces you to separate them in a list. But it's not a big deal if you don't number them. At least make sure that they're written separate from each other as you see standard form here. You know?
Okay, yeah, I was planning to write them. I just want to make sure that I could because it helps me visually.
Yeah, it does. So I would say go ahead and number them in that case. That's good. But don't number the conclusion because it's not like a part of the premises. So only number the good.
I've been taking notes as I backspace and then it lines up with the text above. And then I just type it in the conclusion.
Yeah, that's good. That makes perfect sense. So like, where could you receive deductions of credit? If you gave the wrong type of argument name, like if you called this modus ponens or something, that would clearly be a major deduction of credit. If you did not supply the missing sentence, if you did not put it in standard form, or here's something, just make sure you don't do this. Some students, they misunderstand the instructions and they just write the missing sentence together with the type of argument. Like, so if all you wrote after this was written in the book was like modus tollens, John did not propose, that wouldn't be complete because I want to see the whole structure of the argument, including all the premises that are in there. At least one of the examples, the sentence that's missing is not the conclusion, but the premise. That's also the reason that I need you to write the whole thing out, because otherwise me, the grader, I wouldn't know whether you, the student, recognized if the missing sentence was supposed to be in the conclusion position or in the position of one of the premises. So in most all of the cases, just I'm going to tell you, it is the conclusion that's missing. But there's at least one case where it's a premise, and that's why you got to really write the whole argument out. Blake, another question? Or is that from before?
No, I think that might have been from before.
Okay, good. No problem. Hannah, your question says, if we are writing it out, is it okay to use different colors of pen for the different things? Yeah, that's totally fine. No worries there. Yeah, just whatever helps you to remember or structure it is good. So like here, I'm not going to give you the answer or anything, but I will read you the first question so that you can sort of see what I'm talking about that's in the book. So question 1, exercise 8.3, it says, if Sam enlists in the Army, then he'll have to go to boot camp. But Sam does not have to go to boot camp. Okay, then you're off. Like, you have to finish that argument. You have to write the missing statement. You have to indicate what kind of argument it is and write it in standard form. Highlight, circle, or star the missing statement wherever it appears in the overall argument structure. Another one. If you look at another woman one more time, I'm going to leave you. Mike looks at another woman. Okay, we don't know. I'm not going to tell you, but fill in the blank. There's something missing, and it's a certain type of argument. So in every case, it's either modus ponens, modus tollens, or the chain argument. And using the information that we've learned today, that's also in the book, in the pages I've assigned, you should be able to complete this. So you have a whole week to do it. It's not like the most heavy assignment in terms of like it's going to take a ton of time, but don't wait to the absolute last minute. Sometimes it's harder to compose your thoughts and to be calm and reasonable when you're pressed against the deadline. So that would just be my advice for you. But I'll send a message through Canvas that also gives you the written detailed instructions for this so that you have that to refer to over the weekend and throughout next week. But really, that's about it for today's meeting. So what we did today was what we planned, which was to cover the different forms of deductively valid argument. We learned about 4 of them. That's disjunctive syllogism. And then key for our homework, 3 hypothetical syllogisms, which are called modus ponens, modus tollens, and then chain argument. I have a question in the direct message which asks, are the notes today due Thursday at beginning of class? Well, no, none of the notes are due. I don't know what you mean by notes, but the homework assignment is due. Homework assignment is exercise 8.3 on page 268 of the 5th edition, part 1, letters A through J. Am I missing the question? If you want to maybe follow up with me here before I let us go. There's no notes that are ever due. I don't want to see any of your notes. I'm just asking you to turn in homework assignments at certain points in the semester. But maybe I miscommunicated something. Is that clear? Oh, the note taker thing for EOPS? Yeah, I'm not sure. The question to me is about whether notes that were taken today are due Thursday at the beginning of class. So if you could maybe help me understand this question to the student that asked, I would love to follow up so that I understand it and know and don't misunderstand you. But what is it? What is this question? Okay, right. Okay, this person says, I thought that you were writing what you were writing was supposed to be turned in. No, just the workbook exercise. Exercise 8.3. Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, Rams or Bengals? I mean, Los Angeles, I'm from LA, so I'm hoping that it could be the Rams, but I didn't really follow them a ton throughout the season. I guess kind of I'm a bandwagon guy at this point, but I'll be rooting for them. We'll see. I'm not sure what are the odds. They're probably the big underdog, right? I would think.
Yeah. I'd say the Bengals are the underdog, just because they were predicted to go in 3-14 off of Joe Burrow coming off an injury, and then they ended up.
Oh yeah, so he's injured now or something. That's right.
No, he's back. He was injured last season.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought you meant like injured, but like still able to play kind of thing. But yeah, I know Burrow's been playing really well, so I thought that maybe they were the favorites. But it's probably going to be a competitive game. It's kind of nice to have some different teams in there, after we've had Brady for so long, even though he's a great, Hall of Famer and everything. But yeah, enjoy the Super Bowl, guys. Have a great weekend. I'll be in touch with you through Canvas announcements, and then I think I posted the link for my office hours tomorrow, just in case anybody's trying to stop by. But either way, just take it easy, and I'll see you guys soon. If you need anything, just email me, okay? So
thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
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 Sweet.
Thank you. And yes, just closing the YouTube stream. Thanks again, and have a great one.